The community center buzzed with an energy Marjorie had never witnessed in 7 years of HOA meetings. Every folding chair was occupied. People stood along the walls, some even sitting cross-legged on the floor. The board members, usually casual and cheerful, sat stiffly at the front table, avoiding her gaze. Marjorie smoothed her silk blouse and forced a smile. "I call this emergency session to order," she began, voice betraying only the slightest tremor. "Actually, Marjorie," interrupted Gerald Wilson, the vice president, "as this meeting concerns actions taken by you personally, I'll be chairing today." The room quieted as Gerald cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss an incident involving Mrs. Hempstead at the Pine Street bus stop yesterday morning, specifically her physical removal of a disabled child from a school bus and attempted enforcement of a bylaw that was never officially ratified." "Never ratified." Marjorie's voice rose. "We voted." "We discussed," Gerald corrected. "The measure was tabled pending legal review, which you were supposed to arrange." Blood rushed to Marjorie's face. In her enthusiasm to establish her authority, she'd skipped several procedural steps. The meeting deteriorated from there. Residents she'd cited for minor infractions came forward with stories of her overzealous enforcement. Parents whose children rode the bus described their horror at hearing about the incident. 3 families with disabled members spoke about their fears of being pushed out of the community. Then Sergeant Miller stepped to the microphone, his presence commanding immediate silence. "I'm not here to vilify anyone," he began, surprising everyone, including Marjorie. "I'm here to request that we refocus on what matters in a community, looking out for each other, especially our most vulnerable members." His reasonableness made Marjorie's actions seem all the worse. When the vote came, it was unanimous. Marjorie Hempstead was removed as HOA president, effective immediately. As the meeting adjourned, she sat frozen, stunned by how quickly her position of power had evaporated. People filed past without meeting her eyes, people who just yesterday would have greeted her with deference. She was the last to leave, gathering her binder of neighborhood regulations with trembling hands. Outside, the September evening had turned cool. Most residents had dispersed, but a few lingered in the parking lot. To her surprise, Sergeant Miller was waiting beside her car. "Come to gloat?" she asked bitterly. "No, Mrs. Hempstead. I came to offer you a ride to tomorrow's community service project." His expression was unreadable. "The school district is building an accessible playground. Thought you might want to volunteer." Marjorie almost refused reflexively, but something stopped her, perhaps the realization that her need to control others had left her utterly alone. "Why would you offer that? After what I did?" Miller shrugged. "Because communities work better when people find ways to contribute positively. My daughter taught me that." He handed her a flyer and walked away, leaving Marjorie staring at the paper. The playground illustration showed children of all abilities playing together, with a tagline that read, "Building a place where everyone belongs." 3 weeks later, residents passing the construction site would be surprised to see Marjorie Hempstead in jeans and a t-shirt, her perfect manicure sacrificed to manual labor, helping to install wheelchair-accessible swings. Even more surprising was her animated conversation with the small girl in the pink leg brace, both of them laughing as they painted a mural on the playground wall. The story of how Marjorie Hempstead went from HOA tyrant to community advocate would circulate through Sunny Pines for years. Some claimed it was just image rehabilitation. Others thought the sergeant had threatened legal action unless she made amends. But a few, those who watched closely, wondered if perhaps Marjorie had simply found a better way to channel her considerable energy and organizational skills. After all, the playground was completed 2 weeks ahead of schedule and under budget. As for what Marjorie herself thought, well, that remained her own private mystery. Though she was overheard once, when asked if she missed being HOA president, replying with a thoughtful pause, "Power isn't always about being in charge. Sometimes it's about making a difference." Whether she truly believed this or was still working toward believing it remained an open question in Sunny Pines. The silence that followed seemed to stretch into eternity. Marjorie's mind raced through a catalogue of excuses, explanations, and deflections before settling on righteous indignation. her most comfortable emotional state. Your daughter? She released the girl's arm, but straightened her spine. Well, officer, I'm simply enforcing the neighborhood covenants that you agreed to when you purchased your home. Page 42 clearly states, State Trooper. He corrected quietly, moving past her to crouch before his daughter. You okay, Lily? The girl nodded, wiping away tears. My brace got caught. Trooper James Miller, for that was his name, embroidered in neat block letters on his uniform, examined his daughter's leg brace with gentle hands, making sure nothing was damaged. Only after ensuring she was unharmed did he stand, turning to face Marjorie. That's Sergeant Miller, actually, he said. And you've just committed assault on a minor, interfered with public transportation, and violated ADA regulations, all before 8 in the morning. Impressive. Marjorie's mouth opened and closed several times. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She'd spent 15 years climbing the social ladder of Sunny Pines, culminating in her HOA presidency. People were supposed to defer to her authority, not challenge it. I was simply assaulting my daughter? Sergeant Miller supplied, his voice dangerously soft. The bus driver, sensing the tension, ushered the other children back to their seats. Should I continue the route, sir? Yes, please. Lily will ride with me today. As the bus pulled away, Marjorie found herself alone on the sidewalk with an angry state trooper and his daughter. Neighbors had begun to peek through curtains, sensing drama unfolding. This is a misunderstanding, Marjorie said, forcing a laugh. I was merely trying to enforce. Mrs. Hempstead, do you know why I moved to this neighborhood? Miller interrupted. The question caught her off guard. The excellent property values, I assume. For the bus stop, Miller replied. This specific bus stop. The district runs a special needs accessible bus through this route because there are 3 children in the neighborhood who require accommodations. My daughter is one of them. Marjorie's face flushed. She hadn't known this, but admitting ignorance wasn't in her nature. Nevertheless, the association has voted. The HOA cannot override the Americans with Disabilities Act, Miller cut in. And even if they could, it wouldn't give you the right to put your hands on my child. For the first time in recent memory, Marjorie felt a prickle of doubt. She'd made a mistake, possibly a serious one, but her pride wouldn't let her acknowledge it. I'll have to consult our legal counsel, she said stiffly. You do that. Miller nodded. I'll be filing my report, and Mrs. Hempstead, until this matter is resolved, I strongly suggest you keep your distance from my daughter and the bus stop. With that, he led Lily to his cruiser, helping her inside with care. As they drove away, Marjorie became aware of the neighbors watching, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright disapproval. Susan Gardner from across the street was already on her phone, undoubtedly spreading the news. By noon, Marjorie's inbox was flooded with messages from HOA board members requesting an emergency meeting. By 3, she received a formal letter from the school district's attorney. By dinner, the neighborhood social media page was ablaze with calls for her resignation. For the first time since taking office, Marjorie Hempstead found herself on the wrong side of community opinion, a position that felt as uncomfortable as it was unfamiliar. Sitting alone in her immaculate kitchen, she stared at her phone as another message appeared. The board meeting had been moved up to tomorrow morning. The subject line read, Vote of No Confidence, Emergency Session. Marjorie Hempstead's shrill voice cut through the morning air like a chainsaw through butter. You cannot park that monstrosity here. This is a violation of Bylaw 7.3, Section C. The school bus driver, a heavyset man with kind eyes and thinning gray hair, looked down at the 5'4" woman blocking his door. Her platinum blonde bob was perfectly styled, not a hair out of place despite the September wind. One manicured finger jabbed repeatedly at the laminated HOA guideline sheet she'd pulled from her designer tote bag. Ma'am, this is a designated school bus stop, he explained wearily. Has been for 15 years. Not anymore. Marjorie's smile was tight, her eyes gleaming with the particular joy that came only from enforcing rules others didn't know existed. The Sunny Pines Homeowners Association voted last week. No commercial vehicles may idle for more than 60 seconds on neighborhood streets. That includes school buses. Behind her, 6 elementary schoolers sat confused on the bus, backpacks in laps. Among them was a small girl with a bright pink leg brace peeking out from under her flowered dress. "Look, the kids need to get to school," the driver tried again. "Then they can wait at the main intersection like I suggested in 3 separate emails to the district." Marjorie crossed her arms. As the newly elected HOA president of Sunny Pines, she'd spent the past month waging war against everything from improperly positioned garbage cans to garden gnomes exceeding the 4-inch height restriction. The bus driver sighed and opened the door, hoping to reason with her off the street. This was his mistake. Marjorie Hempstead took this as capitulation and marched triumphantly up the steps. "Children," she announced with bureaucratic pleasure, "due to zoning restrictions, you'll need to exit the bus and walk 3 blocks north to the county-approved bus stop." The children stared at her in confusion. Not waiting for cooperation, Marjorie moved down the aisle, gesturing impatiently. "Come along now. We all have schedules to keep." When she reached the small girl with the leg brace, she found her moving too slowly. "Young lady, we don't have all day," Marjorie said, grabbing the child's arm. "Please don't," the girl whispered. "My dad says I'm not supposed to." "Your dad isn't in charge of the HOA," Marjorie snapped, tugging the girl to her feet and toward the door. "I am." The girl stumbled, her brace catching on the seat. Tears welled in her eyes. "Mrs. Hempstead," the bus driver's voice had hardened, "let go of that child immediately." "I'm ensuring compliance," Marjorie replied, practically dragging the girl down the aisle as the other children watched in horror. As they reached the steps, a police cruiser pulled up behind the bus, lights flashing. The driver breathed a sigh of relief. Marjorie, however, saw this as validation. "Perfect timing. Officer, this bus is violating local ordinances and the driver is being uncooperative." The cruiser door opened, and a tall figure in the crisp uniform of a state trooper emerged. His face was thunderous as he approached, eyes locked on where Marjorie's hand still gripped the girl's arm. "Daddy," the girl called out, her voice small but relieved. The color drained from Marjorie Hempstead's face as she slowly turned toward the approaching officer. In that moment, she realized that her HOA presidency might just be the second most powerful position in this confrontation. "Ma'am," the state trooper said with deadly calm, "I'd like you to explain why you're dragging my daughter off her school bus."